Good evening, everyone. And I welcome you all to this meeting of the Derry School Board, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So tonight the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from November 30th, from November 30th.
Motion to approve.
Second? I didn't hear the second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained?
Abstain.
Okay,
And I'll abstain from the non-public.
so the next item on our agenda is a public hearing for the acceptance of the PFAS remediation grant.
Okay. As I've mentioned before, this grant is a little backwards because we needed to move forward with the water project at East Derry, and it took a little while for the grant application and approval to take place. So the project has been completed at East Derry in conjunction with Pennachuck Water, Jeremy Lamoth, our director, and the town. We were able to complete the connectivity of water from the building to the public Pennachuck water line. The total cost for that project was $136,000 to run the water from the ground to the building, or from the Pennachuck to the building, and then the plumber to do all the interior plumb of bringing the water into the building to connect the lines on the interior. That total cost was $14,750. So the total cost of the East Derry water project was $150,750. The grant that the district was awarded was $150,000. So the net cost to the Derry School District was $750 to have the water connected to the Pennachuck Waterworks. The New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services requires, in order to receive the grant, the $150,000, the board would need to have a public or a board vote that certifies that they were in agreement with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services funds to support the financial end of the water system improvement project. And it says to further authorize Pennachuck Water to execute any documents which may be necessary to execute the grant agreement. Pennachuck has completed their project, but we do need a board vote. And once there is a board vote, then Jeremy will have the documents notarized tomorrow and certified, and they will go up to the state, and then the district will receive our reimbursement for $150,000. So at this time, you can either open up the public hearing and then a vote on the grant, please.
So as this is a public hearing, if any members of the public have questions about this grant, they're welcome to come up at this time. If not, I will conclude the public comment period of the public meeting. Do any members of the board have questions? If not, I would welcome a motion to accept the funds.
I move that we accept the funds on the grant for the water project. I move that we accept the funds on the grant as specified for the water project.
Brenda?
Jane, does there have to be specific language that you just read in the motion?
Doesn't have to be specific language.
Okay.
Or we have to vote
Okay.
accepting the grant and the requirements, and also that Penachuk would execute documents.
Paul, could you amend your statement saying that Penachuk will execute the documents as required?
Yeah, I couldn't hear her, so, but that's okay.
Okay.
I move that Penachuk will execute the documents as required under the grant.
Okay.
Accept the requirements, yes.
He's speaking as loudly as he can, Richard.
So I think if you could just make the motion that the district will accept the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services grant for the water project and further authorize Penachuk Water to execute their documents to complete the grant.
I'm going to have to write that down because it's too long for me to, word for word. I expect that remove. We should have had a sample motion.
Sorry
Maybe
about
if
that,
you
Jo-
just said, so moved as Jane has stated per
I think that would be fine.
DES, I think, and she can give Tammy that language that's specific. I think we all heard it and
Yeah.
we understand what it is.
Does that work, Paul?
It works for me, it's fine.
Okay. And a second? Who was the second? Brenda. So a first by Paul, a second by Brenda, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and we are very thankful for that grant so that we could do that project and not have it funded.
Can I just make a clarification as well? And I know when we've gone through budget process, people have asked the question whether grants, ESSER or otherwise, become part of your default budget. And I want to just clarify that this grant would not become part of any district default budget. This is a one-time grant only.
So next, I'd like to invite members of the VFW up. There was a Patriots pen writing contest through our local schools, and they've come to announce the winners. So we welcome them.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Isaac Miller. I'm commander of the Veterans of Foreign Wars, Post 1617 in Derry. And this is Kim Copson. She's a program chair for this program from the auxiliary. She is also our department or state junior vice president for Department of New Hampshire. I'm glad she could be here with me tonight. We have some presentations for our Patriots Pen Award that I announced when I was here during the summer, I believe it was. And the Patriots Pen is a program where 6th, 7th, and 8th graders can write an essay, 300 to 400-word essay on the theme of how can I be a good American that was chosen this year. And every year that theme changes, but the program's the same, 300 to 400-word essay. Of the essays, we received 12 to judge from, and I'd like to announce some of those that excelled in this program tonight. We also had the Voice of Democracy that I spoke about for the high school program. That's for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. But we had no entries for that program, and I would have announced those winners tonight, but kind of disappointed about that result. Also with this program, I want to say about the Patriots Pen is that our post gives monetary money for scholarship for these youngsters, and that's what I'm here to present tonight, a little monetary award. And the grand prize winner, those that excel and go to the national level, the grand prize for this contest is a $5,000 scholarship to the winner. But without further ado, I'd like to first announce Janiyah Cologne. Janaya was our third place winner. She had a very good essay. And these essays are judged not only on content, but on how well they stick to the theme. How can I be a good American? Janaya, thank you very much for participating in our program.
Thank you.
Here you are. Second place, Bryn McKenna. Thank you very much, Bryn.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Congratulations. And what I would like to have, I will step aside for our first place entry because I'd like her to read her essay to the board. Our first place essay for the Patriots Pen for 2021-22 year goes to Reagan Covino.
Have you ever heard the term, "I'm proud to be an American"? Well, that phrase should apply to everyone because America is an amazing country. One thing that is really important, in my opinion, to do is take the moment of silence that you do after the Pledge of Allegiance and really reflect. Another important action that you can take is not being biased about races, money, or gender. The last thing I think is to make a good American is showing appreciation for our country. This is what being American means to me. If you're a student in school, then you know about the moment of silence. Most people take that time to talk to their friends, but the meaning of that to me is to reflect and give thanks to all those who have given their lives for equality or independence. I think about Martin Luther King Jr. and how without him I wouldn't have a best friend. We would be separated and not even allowed to speak. I also think about Malala Yousafzai, who almost died to make gender equality in schools. This is what I think about during the moment of silence, instead of talking about that one cute boy that sits across from you in science. And these are only some of the people who I thank for being brave, even when it's cost them. Another important factor about being a good American is not being biased to one group or another because of things like gender, race, or money. For example, don't be like the people in the AIDS epidemic, who thought the people of the LGBTQ+ community had brought the AIDS disease. That is an example of people being biased because it went against the stereotype. Or in 2001, people were biased against Muslim Americans because the men who destroyed the Twin Towers were Muslims, even though the rest of the Muslim Americans had nothing to do with the planes. In conclusion, what I think makes a good American is not only not being biased or appreciating our country, but is also about being accepting and loving and compassionate. This is how to be a good American and a good person.
That was fantastic, and I'm very proud of the future, of our youth. After reading these essays, patriotic essays, makes me proud to be commander of our post, and I'm sure Kim as well can echo that same sentiment. Thank you, Reagan. Also, coming up in March of this year, we will have what's called the oratorical contest. January will be the high school version of the oratorical contest for 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade students. Those students will speak for 10 minutes about any part of the U.S. Constitution that they choose, a 10-minute oration, followed by 4 amendments to the Constitution. And of the 4, they have to prepare for all 4 amendments, a 3 to 5 minute speech. But we will pick one out of a hat and decide that day which one they will talk about, and they will have 5 minutes to prepare for that. So it's a very great and very competitive contest. We have, uniquely in New Hampshire, a junior version of that contest. This is for 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. And again, we award prize money for this contest. And this will be in March. And typically it's here at West Runningbrook Middle School, or it has been in the past. But I think there was an issue with charging custodial fees for us to be here for the contest, so they chose to move to a different location, if that's the case. So maybe if something can happen, we'd like to remain here, but not for the fees. But and this is a sponsored program by the American Legion. So I sent information to you about that. I think, Eric, I'm not sure if everyone on the board received that, but I know I sent, there's 4 pieces to that puzzle for the oratorical contest. And again, I'd like it to be just as competitive as the Voice Democracy and the Patriots Pen. And now, last but not least, what I have here today is the Teacher of the Year award. Kim Copson, actually, her husband works at Derry Village, and he found a very patriotic teacher, second grade teacher in the school, and said, we've got to do something for her. So I sent a message to Chris McCallum, her principal, and he decided, sure, we can send a recommendation for Teacher of the Year for Erica. And without further ado, I'd like to present Erica DeSena, second grade from Derry Village. That's it, right?
Thank you.
Erica? I am. Chris, what are we going to do?
I'll take one.
All right.
Oops. Light him up, Rich.
I did. Very nice. Thank you.
So Isaac and Kim, I'd like to thank you both for bringing this to us so we could share it with our community, and to Erica, Jania, Bryn, and Reagan, all of you, great job. Reagan, I speak here every week. I still get nervous every other week when I come here and speak, and you did it like a pro, even though you clearly don't speak here every other week. So hats off to all of you. You're all great examples of what makes us proud to be in the Derry School District, so thank you all.
Is it possible to have a quick photo op with all the contestants?
Hey, can I just add something?
Yes.
Commander Kim, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your passion, energy, and commitment. I can see our Director of Literacy's wheels turning about that oratorical contest already. Sarah, I know you'll be pushing that. I believe you will have several candidates as they age up in that Voice of Democracy. Our students aren't that far off from that age. Reagan, Bryn, and Janiyah, terrific job. You know, not only because you were proclaimed as the winners, but just for your participation alone. And all of our 12 candidates for their participation, their time, and their commitment. Reagan, Bryn, and Janiyah, on behalf of Dr. Garofalo and I think we'd like to sit together with you at some point prior to vacation and listen to your essays. I think it's nice if we sat in a group and heard what you had to say. I think it's important, and I understand tonight maybe is not the time, but I do value what you say. So I'd like to make some time to just get together and listen to what you wrote. It's really important to us. So thank you for what you did and what you have to say. Erica, thank you for your continued positivity. Your smile lights up a room. And thanks for what you do for our students every day. So thanks to all of you for being here tonight and your families. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
May I please add one more thing super quickly? I just wanted to say, as a student myself, I think it's really amazing that all 3 of you decided to take your social justice advocacy to the next level and ultimately feel confident enough submitting your work to this writing contest. I think that's really inspiring. So just congratulations to you all for being recognized. And second off, for you, I think it is really, really amazing about the opportunities that you're giving to students. One thing I would say is, I'm pretty sure Peter Gaucher, he is our social studies department head at Pinkerton Academy. Potentially reaching out to him would be a possibly good idea, just to ensure that some high school students could participate if that's what you are looking for as well with this essay contest, because I do know that if I was made aware, and I know various other students would really love to participate in it in a following year.
In my writings, I wrote both the social studies chair and the English chair at Pinkerton, and they both responded back to me that they were, because of COVID this year, that there were too many other struggles going on at this point.
That makes sense.
Thank you again for being here and shedding such positive light for our schools, school district, our students and families.
And our next agenda item is the Derry Cooperative School District bargaining agreement with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees.
Okay, we'd like to invite Bobby Jones up, and Mr. Anderson, are you going to speak as well?
Good evening. This is a highlight of the tentative agreement between the Derry Cooperative School Board and Ask Me Council number 93. We came to an agreement on a 2-year bargaining unit between 2022 and 2024. In that agreement, we noticed a need for specific staff members that are in the Project Me and the ISLE programs, and gave them a wage differential of 50 cents additional for those 2 programs. And the regular wage schedules were increased. The total increase for year 1 was a little over $268,900, which is around a 7-cent tax increase. Year 2 was just over $189,000. From the very beginning of this bargaining session, we understood that this particular group of individuals had many options out in the workforce, and we're working against McDonald's at $15 an hour, a lot of retail stores at that and higher, Amazon paying wages higher than that, and these members were below that. So we have several openings now, and we wanted to try to fill those openings, and then of course in the future be able to maintain that staff going forward. So we noticed that we had a need in this work environment to increase the wages. So it's a nominal number. The percent increase is scarier than the number, but and that's just due to the nature of the environment we're in right now. So I would see if Mr. Jones has anything to say before we make a motion.
I'd just like to thank you and Madam Chairwoman for being on the committee. It was very, very, we were cognizant that early on you understood the concerns that we had, and we came to an agreement rather quickly. And I know that the members of the bargaining unit appreciate that, and they voted yesterday afternoon unanimously to ratify the contract.
It's excellent. Thank you very much. It was a good negotiating session. Obviously, neither of us got exactly what we wanted, but that's the nature of a successful contract. So with that, I will make a motion to ratify the agreement between the Derry Cooperative School Board and the Ask Me Council number 93, Local 1801.
And I'll second that motion. Would anyone like to speak before we vote? If not, Brenda?
I'll just say thank you for this done, and thank you for working hard with them as well. Our assistants are so important to us. For our kids, they work so hard and they give so much. They have so much heart. So I think this is a really great step for them, and I'm glad that it's been done. And I don't want to compare them to other employees out in the world, because they're not comparable. They're amazing. So I just want to make sure that I say thank you to all of you, and thank you to them, all of our assistants, for how hard they work.
If I could, Erica, I expressed my appreciation a year ago with your patience, Mr. Jones, and your group, and I think it's admirable that you're recognizing the struggles that we were all having a year ago, and I appreciate the patience of your bargaining group, and I hope this catches us up. I think echoing Brenda's point, this is interested in having people and the need for this, to get into this field and keep them there, and making sure that we have a rewarding experience for those people, and encourage them to keep working with the students in this way. So my compliments to your union and to your group, and I appreciate your patience once again. Thank you.
And I would agree, and thank you, Bobby, for always working with us in a collaborative nature. Thank you to the assistants, thank you to our negotiating team, thank you to our team of assistants, and hopefully the team members that will join us on behalf of students, because we know students are the center of their world, and certainly the center of ours. So thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Don.
So all in favor of ratifying the agreement?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much, Bobby.
Thank you all.
The next item on our agenda tonight is a report from Davis Demographics.
If I can, I would just like to introduce Mr. Lorne Davis, and we've worked with Lorne now. This is the second demographic study that the district has done, and we reached out again, particularly to work in conjunction with the facilities assessment and master plan. So this works nicely with the plan of having Davis Demographics. Since they did the previous one, it's a continuation of the work that they had originally done. So I think we have a PowerPoint that Lauren has prepared, and I'd like to welcome you, Lauren. Thank you for coming.
It's great to be back. We were joking earlier, last time I was out in Syosset, and I said, Mary Ann, I think I'll drive, it's so nice. And I think I sent a text, and I was in Brooklyn, and it was like 2 hours. And I said, oh, it's be all right. It's starting to snow a little bit. 9 hours later. Live and learn. Thank you for the great weather. You all should have received a packet. Good. So if you're looking up there, you have it right in front of you, so it'll probably be easier to see some of the stuff sometimes. Something to think about while we go through all these slides. Davis Demographics works in GIS. So, Jane's doing stuff with the cohort analysis tabularly. And when we're doing stuff, we're looking at the student population as per the little neighborhood areas and things. And so what that gives us an advantage of, and gives you all an advantage of, is seeing where the growth and decline areas are. Because you're going to say, well, Lauren, one of them looks like it's in decline. It is in certain areas. It's being offset. Or like working with George and Liz at the planning department, you have all these developments that are coming online, and then recently that big piece of property up north going up for sale. What's the impact on that? And so those things offset some other places. So, and we'll talk about that through this process. If you have questions, we'll get into some details, but if you start having questions and things and you don't want to ask them now, that's okay. We're not done. By no means. We have more stuff to do. I'm sure Mary Ann mentioned before that the full report will be coming next month. We're waiting on some other student data. Last time we were able to have the high school student files. This time, because of time constraints, we weren't able to get those files in time for this initial findings, but at least this is the K-8 numbers for the area. So your district has natural splits based off the attendance areas, right? You have your elementary and your middle areas, and they break themselves up in natural splits. But within that, we broke those down into smaller planning areas. And the very first time we did the work, it was extensive because of some recent rezoning that occurred. We wanted to make sure that we were representing those neighborhoods that were changed for the middle school changes. You want to make sure when you're splitting study areas that you're not, trying not to break up existing neighborhoods. Take in mind that 93 is a true line of demarcation. Kids can't cross over it, or you don't want them to. Waterways, features like that. So if you look at some of the maps in the reports, you'll start seeing these wiggly lines. You'll go, I know that creek. or there's a main thoroughfare right there. That's why the boundaries are split in that way. The other part of this was we updated the previous information. So first thing that happens, you all said, we're going to start working on this project. Who do I call? Well, I called George at the town. Make sure, hey, here is a online map of the last study's development layer. If anybody was here, show of hands, who was part of here last time on the board? Okay, so if you remember, there were some online maps and analytics that helped as we're collecting the information, making sure that we're on the right track with George and Liz, that we have the development, because you want to make sure that those forecasted, projected buildings are going to be in there. The other part is getting together with New Hampshire's vital statistics and get the correct birth counts. And then we also, we're going to, and not as extensive in this presentation, but with the report, we're going to show some comparisons between this and last times. There's a good example of what we did where we took a look at the sample of parcels that were used to identify the student generation rates and how that's changed a little bit over the within 2 years it's changed. And then again, when I talked about research, the residential development, this is one of those things that's always good to know who's involved. Getting the email right before I was about to hit enter, I saw the email from George about that 400-acre parcel being sold, and he and I are going back and forth. I go, what's it zoned for? And so we already came up with an idea that it should be about 120 to 100 to 125 homes based off the current zoning. So he doesn't suspect there's going to be any change in that, but that was the intent. We're going, okay, so that sounds right to me. Once we've gotten there, we've hit go, then we kick out your summaries. Your study areas aggregate up into your elementary and middle school areas. Each one of those study areas has its own separate summary, its own set of projections. So, because they all aggregate up. The reason why we do that is that sometimes you have other geographies that you may want to do projections on, maybe on certain zip codes or trustee areas or things like that. We work throughout the nation, so knowing these things and having this stuff available has helped us with the Voter Rights Act redistricting process. Okay, that's all well and good. How does this work? Well, there's not some fancy formula we're going to point up to and then say math. It's three things. Three things go into your projections. Birth counts, birth rates, your mobility statistics, and your student generation. Birth rates help us anticipate the future kindergartners because you don't know really, except for new development. That's the only other calculation, right? The other part is mobility. When we say mobility, that's like when I referenced Jane using the cohort method, the tabular method. We call it mobility because it's spatial. It's based off of the ins and outs of the last 4 years of a specific study area, and then it applies up to the smallest geography, which are the elementary areas. So you'll see that in the report too, where we have this year's snapshot, but then a comparison of what it was last time. And I'll point out what, the ones that make me run out of the office when I first see them. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, the fun stuff. This is Mary Ann's favorite, the maps. Right? Everybody loves maps. Don't get me wrong, I love maps. I love them. So the thing with doing things in GIS, we're able to look at things over the last several years. We have more data because we have from the previous study. We're able to look at further out, but we want to look at the last 4 years, the rate of change the last 4 years. This map is just an example of what I call the wall-eyed effect, right? The dots sitting on top of dots. You get 4 layers of dots sitting there. It's a big old crazy eye looking thing looking at you. But the thing that you also want to look at are areas of the district where you see the 2018 and 2019, but no 2020 and no 2021 students. So when you start looking at those things, those are things to consider when we look at the mobility numbers and we see like differentiators between the years. And then I shared this last time, if you don't already know this, the density is on the west side of town, right? This is your 2021 student density map, and it highlights exactly where all the hotspots are within the student population. Those blue outlines, by the way, those are your study areas. Now, once we have the kids geocoded, here's the next best part. We create the open enrollment report called the attendance matrix. The attendance matrix helps us make sure, one, it came in handy the first time, making sure that we had the boundary line split. If we saw outliers, like a lot of kids coming from one zone to another school, we know that inter-district transfers like that are not common. So we know that there was probably a line that should have been shifted over at a neighborhood or something. These open enrollment reports, matrices, help you see the number of students that live in the area and also comparing to the number of students that are enrolled at a school. There may be different programs going on there. In this example, your elementary matrix that's on the left side of the page, we included the pre-K counts, so you can see that number on the right column as it goes down. So you have 13 pre-K students that live in Derry Village, attendance zone, and 11 at East Derry, and so on and so forth as you go down there. They don't attend that campus, that's just them living in that zone. It helps you understand what if we brought pre-K into the neighborhood zones, or neighborhood campuses. Not enough kids, right? But at least it tells you how many are in the area. And then the middle school. This is the funny one. Anybody see the Army-Navy game this weekend? They do the exchange, the prisoner exchange. You all have that going on between the hood and this campus. You have 18 and 18 switching off between campuses. Don't know why. Maybe they're teacher kids. Who knows? I just thought that was interesting. And then we started sharing this. This is new in this year's report. It's something that's been asked from other clients. So when you look at this year's report we get done and look at the one from a couple years ago, it's going to look totally different because every year we have a staff goes through previous year's information and things that clients have shared or asked for. And one of the things they wanted is to have a sheet with just the utilization impacts. Why not? You know, you have architect firm that's here helping out. The capacity number, that's the capacity number from the last time we had the study. I'm sure that they have a clearer one, but the neat thing about it is it's a table. Find and replace that number and recalculate it. Gives you what the percentage is. Now, the only campus, that is at something that you might want to consider it may be an issue is this one. This one's at 90% capacity at each level, at kids that are enrolled here and at kids that are living in the area. But it's not really that bad. 90% is, depending on how the campus is, it's a large footprint. It may not have any impact. I mean, I'm working with a district in one of the county districts in Georgia, and they had a 140% capacity utilization issue at a middle school. And I'm like, I'm the only one worried. Everybody else is like, yeah, that's right. We have split lunches and dual pickups and all this other stuff. I'm like, but being there, it's a 60-acre footprint. So it's a huge campus with lots of different avenues to getting in and out. So I think that they probably need to have a new utilization done. I think they're getting more. I think they undercutted their counts. So once we have the kids geocoded, perfect. Send maps, send the open enrollment report to Jane, make sure we're all on the same page. We get the information from New Hampshire about births. This is not one of those ones where you go running out of the room. Everybody knows that the births have been down or been going down. One thing that you want to make note of all of the years, this kindergarten class is represented by one of the smallest birth years in the history of the town. That's why I made sure it was nice and bold that you all could see that. Other than that, it's been rather static. The national trend has been in the dumps, right? It's been dropping 2-3% a year since 2016. But here, it's staying rather static. Knowing that, and then comparing it to the relationship between students to births, the kids that show up as kindergartners from when they were born 5 years earlier, that number has been staying steady or increasing slightly. What's interesting, what I thought was interesting, and this is, this is probably, it doesn't affect anything now, but 17 years ago, there were close to 476 births in the town. It just went like this, but just like what's going on in the state, right? But the market share, whoever's born here is coming here and people are moving in. We know that because just anecdotally, you drive around, there's houses that were vacation homes that are now full-time homes, right? That started happening a couple years ago. And it picked up even more during the pandemic. George is not here, I'll point like this, George is here. Conversations we have are, George, I see a lot of turnover in these homes. I saw when I was driving last time. But what I'm seeing now is that it looks like people are there permanently. They're not at the lake home anymore, which leads to another thing that I've seen in other districts that used to be destination areas or the weekend cottage situation. Those homes have become permanent homes because the advent or an increase in accessibility of the internet, the shutting down of offices and stuff. I'll go back and point, George is not here, but George and I talking about if internet increases, this is in 2019, internet increases, it gets better in the area, I can see people using this corridor, 93, and getting further and further up. Well, you hear about it in the news, right? The southern part of New Hampshire is just getting inundated from people from Boston and whatnot, and people that are local, that were local, we're not hearing from them again, right? Because they're moving further up north. And so this has been exacerbated by COVID lockdowns. We've already seen this in Portland, Maine, where that's a client of ours, where they're just people that once lived in Boston are living in Portland, Maine, and doing the same thing, but at their homes. So you're looking at 2-3 bedroom homes. You might see you used to see maybe one kid or two kids possibly. There's no kids there. It's an office, a workout room, and a bedroom. Okay. So those are, I run on, but we'll talk about this in a few minutes with the mobility. After the mobility, we'll talk about the student generation rates. So your mobility this year. The thing that jumped out at me, this is the one I gave you a little sneak peek of talking about your kindergarten to first grade mobility. There was an increase. You're looking at like 20, well, I'm looking at right here. You're looking at some cases 26% increase. That means that if there were 100 kindergartners in one area, like in East Derry, the following year, first grade could expect 126. If you take that in face value right now without knowing about COVID and the impacts in the area, they're going, oh wow, there must be like large parochial programs, and then they dump out the kids into first grade. Well, that's not the case. Those are the real numbers, the ones on the bottom. Those are the numbers pre-COVID. You can see the bounce back that has happened. Remember, we had the drop off in 2020, what we referred to as the long spring break. Okay, well, we had that drop off. And this year you saw that bounce back again, and you see it in about first grade. Jane probably talked about it a couple times, but This is one of those things I was not surprised to see it. Some areas are still, it's not bouncing back as quickly, but some areas that we do work twice a year, I suspect I'll start seeing this type of increase in the spring. Again, just to keep in mind, the ones at the top are the ones of the last 4 years. The ones at the bottom were the previous 4 years of that study. The ones at the bottom are probably a little more closer to what the actual situation here is, the actual situation that's happening here. The ones at the top, those first grade numbers are outliers because there were kids that weren't there and suddenly appear. They aren't really collecting the actual snapshot. So these are one of these things where we go in and look, okay, where's that kid? What's that kid's name? Was he here as a kindergartner? That type of thing, and try to figure out, was there just something weird that happened? Well, yeah, there was. It was COVID, and it was COVID bounce back. Okay, this is the one I want to make sure, this is one of those side-by-side comparisons, just like the mobility numbers. The 2019 study, it's not a big number, but it kind of meets what we're thinking about anyways in our office, that that student generations are in decline anyways in new home sales, in recently built homes. You don't have as many kids coming from newer builds. The reason behind that is, as Gen Xer, as I'm getting older, I'm not buying I might buy another home, maybe, but who's buying the homes now? My son, my daughter, they're buying homes. Are they having kids? No. If you look at the percentage of new home purchases, that millennial Gen Z is now increasing to almost 50% of those home transactions. That's only going to increase. That same generation, and people say it's a profanity, but millennials are taking over the new purchasing power. They may not want to have as many kids. Those are the children that we brought up. Get that extended education. Do well, get your income going, this and that. And what happens? They start doing well. They start putting off getting married. They wait a little longer to have kids, and then when you wait longer to have kids, you may have one, maybe two. Okay. I have friends of mine that had their first kid when he was 50 years old. I said, look for a walker for the schools that you go to. Walking ramps. It's going to be 68 when the kid graduates high school. But as we start looking at homes, and you say, oh, well, Lauren, you'll see in the report there's 400 something homes. There aren't going to be 400 kids coming from those. In fact, as the home types change, those trends change also. So, real simple stuff. This is like you'll say at the office, it's not rocket surgery. We have polygons. We have the same sample that we used last time from 2019. Perfect. Let's look at apples to apples, right? Let's match like to like. Okay, there's the 2019 kids. Now here's the 2021 kids on top. That gives us the difference. Where you're declining are at the lower grades, slightly. Not enough to run out of the house and flip over trash cans and stuff and be upset, but you're declining slightly at the elementary grades. You had that slight increase at the middle school. So what's that telling you? It's telling you the new home buyers are coming in with slightly older families, okay? So each dot represents the kid, each polygon represents the part of the sample. Okay, your residential development, 426 homes as of a couple weeks ago when we got the email about that one. That was the one, oh my gosh, and it was a feverish email exchange back and forth. the locations of the developments. You all probably have seen them. Some of these aren't active. They're about to be active. So when you look at the next chart, you'll notice some of these are not coming online until years 3, 4, and 5. And then that all depends on how they get processed through the town, how the town releases permits to have them move ahead. And then the proportions of where the development is. So a lot of the development, if you look at the middle school, it's in this zone. But each one of the elementary areas has a little bit, or has a bit of residential development going on. But you see that there are, just one East Derry has the smallest sliver. What's that mean? Okay. When we put it all together, your district is still there's no growth planned. It's still in decline. Okay, these are your enrollment numbers for your 6-8. I mean your K-8 numbers. The district is probably going to stay around this threshold for a while, unless something changes miraculously within housing. But talking to the town, there's not a lot of other places to expand on that are available that would be effective. Even if you thought about that, you have to have some significant housing plans coming on. I'm talking about those Texas-sized 20,000 master plan communities. You don't want those. Your elementary, we have it starting to dip down and then level off. And then leveling off is mostly attributed because of those birth factors. You saw in one of those charts where it's the last several years of births have been relatively stable. We also know that more kids are coming into the area, so that's helping offset some of those losses. So we put this in here. This is something new, a newer style chart, just so you can have the capacity across. In the reports, you'll have bar graphs with the capacity in there, so it's even more visual. But in this case, this is really simple for this presentation. The only school that is in decline is East Derry, approximately 50 kids in 5 years, and a total of 50 kids over 10 years. So not a lot. Some things to consider, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Some things to consider, there are larger class sizes that are moving up and out of elementary now. They're already in the middle. Your middle school population, the overall population is tending to decrease. It is a natural decrease. It's not something other than you have some really large middle school classes, 400 students a pop, that are leaving and graduating out and going to Pinkerton, being followed up with some smaller classes. And we'll see that, and I'll point it out to you in another table up ahead. But both campuses are expected to lose students. The light blue is over 5 years, then you'll see a little snapback, and then the overall loss over 10 years is 24 and 37 each campus, respectively. Your grade changes, I thought this would be important just to show this. Again, the grade changes, the elementary rates are going to stay relatively increase slightly or stay level because of because of the birth factors that we applied. The 8th grade and 7th grade losses, these are because those large student populations are leaving and being replaced by smaller grades in the subsequent years. The matriculation. So your historic and forecasted students, great, I love this chart. Let's add some context to it. Your mobility affects the matriculation of years, okay? So for instance, I like this one, except for it on 2018, it had that peculiarly small kindergarten class. But watch that kindergarten class in 2018, and it's 300 or so students all the way through, okay? They're going to graduate out at 8th grade in 2026. But look what they're replacing from previous years. 418 students, 397, 408, 410. That's what we call a natural, it's just a natural decrease that's happening because it's within the student population, it's within the community already. Another one of the last large grades coming through. So the 8th grade class in 3 years, that's when your last large grade class is graduating through. And then that's it. Then you're going to be in the low 300 averages at that point, the 330s or so. So mobility, birth factors affect the kindergarten, and what affects all the grades? Residential development. Residential development, how many units times the student generation rates divided by 9 over those grades, right? And the phasing. So not all 400 go on next year. Remember, we saw the chart. They're going in proportionally or in proportions based off of when the town plans on issuing permits or the actual activity of construction. And then you have your, what we call the total enrollment forecast. So these are the students, total student enrollment within the district. Some of these kids are either unmatched or they live outside of the district. This has been a consistent number except for last year, well, kind of consistent. Last year had 31 kids, this year it's 14. You have a couple students that are just outside the periphery of the district. You have some kids that just can't be geocoded because they may have their address may not be able to be published. So we just put it as unmatched. And then the best part about all of this, it's all in GIS. So we're able to highlight the hot spots of the area. So the red are the areas of growth and the green areas are the areas of decline. I took a moment and I just put a number, like for instance, in that south part of Derry Village, those 2 red polygons. I don't know if I can hover over no, I can't do that. But one has expected 49 student increase over 10 years, and the one south of it, 77 students over the next 10 years. If you look up to the north, on the other side of 93, there's 52 students in that one polygon in Ernest Barca's elementary area. And then in Grinnell's on that far west side of the district, they're going to lose 34 students. And then you have another area in Derry Village. Derry Village has this growth down here, but then they have this loss that's on the other side of the interstate. So having stuff in geography helps us, one, point out where all these areas of growth are, but also anticipate or help have the data in place if things like rezoning have to happen, which I don't think that it needs to happen. But that's the nice thing about geography and having things done at the residential level like this. And that's it. Are there any questions? I'm sure there's lots of questions. And if you don't have questions, that's okay. This is not a test. Again, we're not, hey, I'm a phone call away. Jane has the number. She has the email. Questions are going to come up. A report's going to come out. What's a report, like 50, 60 pages last time? It's probably going to be a little bit bigger this time, just because we have some more stuff. And so there's going to be a lot more to this. I had one trustee refer to the report as the cookbook. She would read it. I remember at the board meeting, she came over afterwards. She goes, I was reading it. It was like Boy Scout method, right? You talk about it, show it, tell them how it's done, right? Pop, 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 pop. And then that's exactly how the report goes. So if you have anything, you start reading it, you're going, oh, I have a question, and you flip the page, oh, there's the answer. It's like one of those horrible textbooks.
I had one question.
Yes, ma'am.
You alluded to the fact that there were a couple of developments in town that could increase our population of students.
So any residential development is already included in the forecast? Yeah. And there's a listing, I can always go back a little bit. So you'll see, and this is just a summary of information. So there's a listing on slide 13 that's associated with the map. So the number to the map, so that you know which areas are what. In the report, you'll actually see more of the phasing elements of it and the impacts of what the counts would be.
So you're saying the larger report will break this down by the number of people in each one? Okay,
Correct.
that was my question,
Yeah.
so I'll wait on that.
Yep.
Can you tell me how you come up with the preschool numbers? Are these our actual preschool students at Deep, or are
Those are the preschool students in the student file this year.
So it's not, this doesn't include, like, we haven't searched for preschoolers outside of Deep, correct? Like, we don't know if there's preschoolers in other preschool programs that live in Derry. This is just our students. Do you know what I'm asking?
Yeah, in the 2021 student file, there are pre-K kids. We don't project the pre-K kids because it's not a constant program. If it was a program that was housed at their neighborhood school and reflected the same impacts of a first or second grade class would, we would project it. Because the student population, the pre-K kids are being housed at a central location.
Yeah.
It follows almost none of the science that we use for the other grades. So we rarely will forecast it unless they're attending their home campus. Therefore, their home campus, they're reflecting the movement of other kids that are attending that campus.
Right, which we don't have, but it
Correct.
also doesn't include, like, my neighbor who has 3 children who don't go to Deep, but they're
Correct.
preschoolers. Okay,
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out those
And
numbers.
that's a good question. So part of this is, there's other things going on in the community. Those are things that would go on. We would research those in what we call right now I just lost my what it was. It was basically like a market share. You know how I showed the birth counts? We do a market share analysis. It's a whole different report where we go in and, knock on wood, we have fairly good census information. It's updated, and try to at each one of the attendance areas, or even in the zip codes, or at the study areas, determine what are the actual number of students within that age group, and then give you the relationship of how many of those are actually your students. The problem with that is there's several assumptions going on that information at that smaller aggregate is correct. And the other part is, it doesn't do anybody any good, because you don't really know the specifics of what the other kids are. So you can't really turn around and do actually market to, maybe you think about it, you're going to be marketing to something that may not be existent because it was done on a larger scale of the census recording, okay? So this is where we're getting to the point where I said the return on investment may not be there for you all to do that significant of a dive into it unless you plan on expanding on a preschool program. And,
Is there a method that could be created for that? I'm just thinking there's proposed federal legislation that's going to create a preschool program, and it's not going to change our overall 10-year projections, but we're also doing a master plan, and it may look at the building where our preschool is currently housed, or if we have to start pushing those out now to their home schools. Is there a way, if that federal legislation goes through, can we figure that out?
well, we'd have to actually see if it actually happens. We're talking about that in summertime still. Yeah, it's a good question. I think it would fall back into the market share study of how many kids, or not how many kids, what is the population count of this age group in the area compared to the district? And then looking at what are the other providers in the area to try to determine what their counts are. Because you know that they only have set capacities. Parochial programs have a set capacity. They can't have any more. They always enroll up to their site capacity. And then there's a lot more to it than just doing this. Again, it's one of those things you may want to revisit if it does come down. Again, ROI, is it worth the money to hire somebody to do it? What's the return on investment? What do we get out of it? And how are we going to use it?
And could you go into, you had capacity numbers, I believe you said West Roanoke is at 90%. How do you determine that number?
Capacity has been given to us.
Okay.
We are not a facility company, so we.
From Jane or someone? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So
From the previous study.
Okay, thank you.
I think there was a wing update or something years ago that changed one of the numbers, or it might have been this school, who knows?
Do you, and you may not be able to do this, but is there any way to account for guesstimates of how many kindergartners you'll end up with, not solely based on births in Derry? Because I'd imagine a lot of people that end up in our kindergarten weren't born here.
Correct. That's that market share that we did. It helps us kind of anticipate what has been happening. And the other part is not only are births, new home builds create kindergartners too. So that helps us understand that. So there's a couple things that we can figure out. And then there's that inward migration to the area. And what do we determine with the student generation rate? The younger grades aren't here. They're starting to decline. So we already have kind of a view behind the veil of what we can expect.
We used to have an easier time locating the kindergarten and preschool students, but because laws changed, and I'm not saying that it's a bad law, with student data protection, it's much harder, even projecting for deep. We used to have an easier time doing that. Now we wait until they turn 3 and they show up because all their information is protected. And I don't know, I think it makes it difficult for school districts with that in place, but I also understand why it's there. So I think that's made things difficult over the past. Well, we know it's made it difficult.
It depends on where you are in the country. There's like in Minnesota, you can actually, there's a person in the SIS department that collects all of the school-age children's information as a process. Don't know how they do it. Never heard it before until we were working in Minnesota. Thought it was awesome. But I found out later it's very difficult, and it's a bunch of FERPA agreements and things that have to be exchanged. Again, ROI. Might as well have a kindergarten roundup or the pre-K roundup early or right around February. It seems to be a lot more effective to getting you a better idea, at least for the fall.
I have a question about the kind of juxtaposing the previous report that we did with these numbers and kind of I don't know if COVID threw a wrench in all of these things, but seeing what trends maybe are still accurate from when we did this previously.
That's a good question. COVID threw a wrench in it. So I think Jane early on, I sent the thing, I go, I'm looking at trends. Is the trend still there? The trend's still there. That trend is still there. It's just because of COVID, it's dropped down about 20 students less per year on this. The trend. So if you look at the year-to-year comparison, it's like this. It's gradual, like we try to plan out. Then you put the COVID number in there, it goes like this, and back up. But then because of that, it's now a natural decrease from year to year. It's a little bit less. It's just below the line of what we had forecasted the 2 years earlier. It was a good situation to have one done 2 years earlier before all this happened. We have a lot of clients that are on multi-year, and so this has been a real interesting time for all of our clients. It's a learning moment for everybody, even people that are professional demographers. It's like one of those 2009 happened again. You know, you're sitting there planning out everything that's going to do this, and this, and this, and next thing you know, the housing market blew up. In this case, what happened? Housing market didn't blow up. They kept building, didn't they? They stopped for about 45 days because they could work outside. Those are good questions, and we're going to have some comparisons in the report, so you'll see that. Yeah, I just didn't want to kill you by PowerPoint. Death by PowerPoint. Maybe I'll do Prezi next time, and then it goes in and out, and you know what I'm talking about.
Does anyone else have any questions? If not, we really appreciate you coming and presenting. It's super helpful, and your reports are very detailed and are very helpful for our planning purposes. So we thank you for your information and your time and your thoroughness.
Thank you. And I just want to tell you, I really appreciate working with your district. We work with a lot of districts. We work with now 400 districts in 41 states and 2 provinces in Canada now. And I enjoy working in Derry because we can get things done. I don't like working in the big districts where it takes forever and it's a bunch of bureaucracy. So when it's time to ask questions, you can actually ask questions instead of having to run it through a communications person, this and that, or whoever. And you have some good people on staff that are ahead of the game. So thank you all, and have a happy holidays. Safe holidays.
You too, Lauren, and thank you. Have a safe trip home.
Yep, I'm going to Phoenix tomorrow. I'm going to be talking to the Arizona School Board.
And we hope next time we see you, we have very good weather when we see you next time.
Yes.
So thank you very much, and thanks for your presentation.
Take care.
Before you leave, can you just let one audience member ask a question? We usually have questions at the end, but if you're headed out, I want to give him a chance to ask.
Actually, I had 2 questions. Can you hear me? I understand. I'm working on it. I have the same question that Derek had. Is how do you?
Richard, can you give your name and address?
Sorry, Richard Tripp, 44 Wyndham Road, Derry, New Hampshire. Anyhow, I have the same question that Derek had. Is how do you determine the capacity? And this is something that the school determines?
We don't determine, it's determined from the state. We get the numbers from there, from our site approvals.
So the state gives you the capacity numbers?
It's part of the state and the approvals to each of the building have capacity numbers. We don't calculate them there.
So you don't know how the capacity numbers are derived either?
What we do, I think in the past, we used to have capacities that were based on fire rating, and that really didn't work because the state has a mandate as if a classroom is a certain size, you can only have so many kids in that. So the state will look at the buildings and say, okay, you have a room that's this size, you can only have this many kids in it. So you go around the building and you figure that out, and that gives us the capacity.
So it's a fire rating determines the capacity?
It does not. That's what I just said, is it does not. They used to, and that was wrong. So now the new method is the state will tell you how many kids you're allowed to have in a room, and that's how you determine it.
Okay, so we would have to ask the state how they determine it.
Well, and we don't necessarily use those capacity numbers because we have our own determination of what is our focus for the number of students in a class, and the state's is not based on our number of students, it's based on a different number.
What are your numbers on your presentation determined on?
They're given to us, they're provided to us by the district. We're
So-
not a facility company, we don't.
So, all right,
have the-
so the numbers that are in the presentation are your numbers?
I'm just saying that the numbers in the presentation are what the state says we can have in the building, not necessarily what we decide we can comfortably teach in the building.
Okay, so they're state numbers. All right, good.
Yes.
The other thing is, your presentation does not deal with homeschoolers at all.
Correct, it's all about, it's
Who's
all.
enrolled?
It's who's enrolled within the Derry Cooperative system.
All right. Oops, sorry.
Oh, you're okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a safe trip.
Yeah, thank you.
The next item on our agenda is the Pinkerton Academy update. Jacob?
Yes, hi everyone. Hope you're all doing well today. So we don't have too many updates for this meeting here, but just starting off, right off the bat, we do currently, well, it might be over now, but at 6:30 p.m. we did have the Pinkerton's Got Talent show, which was run by the Future Business Leaders of America, or FBLA Club. And so a bunch of different students who showed off a variety of different talents was performing tonight, which is always super fun, sort of opening up that entertainment industry for kids who aren't only participating in performing arts activities and anyone on campus. Additionally, Pinkerton has been doing Days of Giving online, and so they've been occurring with various staff members and students who have been explaining what they're thankful for just to spread some holiday cheer during these times. Moving on, with regards to instruments and the music department as a whole, the choir and bell concert is tomorrow night at 7 p.m. in the Stockbridge, and the instrumental holiday concert is Thursday night at 7. So yeah, both of them are in the Stockbridge, and it's super, super fun that we're able to have these performances again, because last year, especially during COVID, it was very difficult to all perform together like this. So I'm really, really grateful, and a lot of the musicians, as in general, are really grateful to have these opportunities again. So definitely come by if you are free and are interested. Next, season's meetings are available to college seniors. So basically what this is they can meet with 6 different schools, including Merrimack College, Riviere, Franklin Pierce University, Southern New Hampshire University, Keene State College, and Plymouth State University, either this Thursday or Friday, to receive an on-the-spot admissions interview and decision. So basically, if they've already submitted their application to one of these 6 schools, they'll be able to register on our Naviance portal to spend 15 minutes with an admissions officer from any of these universities, and then they'll know whether or not they got into that school right after that time, which is pretty interesting. I haven't heard of something like that before. And next, with regards to sports and athletics, the winter sports have started their seasons and are well into their games, so we have a lot of different athletic activities that have been happening, including basketball today, hockey tomorrow, wrestling Thursday, more basketball Friday, hockey on Saturday, and then swimming and indoor track on Sunday. So a bunch of different sports teams are playing all over the state, and the Pinkerton_LCA Instagram page, so the Leadership Council of Athletics, has more details for anyone interested in going to these Pinkerton games. Finally, just one last quick update is just that the Pantry Plunge, which was another athletic-focused event, occurred at Galleonstown Beach last Saturday, or Beaver Lake, if you don't call it that, and various members of this Leadership Council of Athletics ran into the super freezing cold water in their bathing suits to raise money for the Derry Food Bank, so ultimately a really good cause. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jacob.
Jacob, thank you again for your great report, and we hope you have a great holiday. and
Thank
New
you.
Year.
You too.
Our next item tonight is the 2021-2022 reopening plan update, as required by law.
Yes. When we created this for this year, we were told that an update would be due in February. A couple of weeks ago, we got some an email that indicated that it was due on the 23rd of December. So we had been working on it already anyways, and right now what I'm going to do is just go through a lot of the verbiage has just been changed to present. This is what we're doing, because when it was written, it was we will be doing this and we will be doing that. And now we're saying we are doing this and we are continuing to do this. And you folks have a copy with all the yellows in it. It was last updated August 27th, 2021. This update, of course, is tonight, December 14th. And as of tomorrow, the August 27th version will be archived on the district website, and this will be the new version if you go to the website. A couple of changes in the table of contents because we added Appendix E and Appendix F, which I'll mention later. The introduction, again, is specifically changing to from will be's to this is what we're doing right now. No major changes there other than the wording. On page 4, 2021-2022 plan overview, the first section, completely open on site. The second bullet, we made some minor changes. It now reads, recommends face masks for everyone. The Department of Health and Human Services recommends face masks for everyone when level of New Hampshire community transmission reaches substantial in the region where the school or child program is operating. And we mentioned the Appendix A, and now which is the face covering decision matrix, and now Appendix B, which is the community transmission metrics. There's been a bullet added. Face mask recommendations do not extend to most outdoor locations, but school and child care facilities may consider for high-risk situations or activities, close physical contact sports, for instance. And those are the major changes on page 4. Page 5, social emotional well-being. Again, some verbiage up in the first paragraph. Rewording. We put students before families and staff, for instance. We missed that last time for some reason. And we added a bullet, which is the bottom of that first section for social and emotional well-being. Include a social emotional component in the quarantine support program, which is Appendix E, and unfinished learning support, which is Appendix F. Okay, on to page 6. In the district planning, we just took a couple of the bullets and included them into the pandemic response team bullet. And then we changed in the timeline action steps. The last 3 bullets now read, review and revise opening plan as necessary. District teams, September through December 2021. Present plan revisions December 14th at this meeting, and distribute and post the updated plan on the district website after this meeting, which, as I said, it will be up sometime, if not later on tonight. Sometimes Cliff has it, Dr. Dancy has it all set up to go automatically, but it will be changed tomorrow. And then in the section for monitoring school attendance, we added a much larger title. It now includes new cases, community transmission, and face covering status. And we added to the bottom, additionally, each school sends a weekly update to families indicating the number of new positive cases within their school community. A chart representing weekly data that details the number of new positive cases reported for the school district is available on the district website. This chart also indicates the current level of community transmission and face covering status. In the curriculum section, we added one bullet in the instruction plan, right in the middle, provide additional opportunities to address unfinished learning through the Quarantine Support Program, Appendix E, and Unfinished Learning Support, Appendix F. And moving on to page 8, under Extended Learning Opportunities, the ongoing unfinished learning support. It was just-in-time learning path, and now it's been titled ongoing unfinished learning support, and that refers to Appendix F. And then in the temporary COVID-related quarantine and isolation, we mention again for quarantines the Appendix E, stress that during this quarantine extra help, students have live access to designated teacher teams. And we added at the bottom to help try to keep account of students who are on quarantine and making sure they still have connections to our school. Building administrators will oversee quarantine-related student absences and ensure a connection occurs with students and families. Contact may include email, phone, and/or video conferencing from school nurse, building admins, school counselors, home-to-school coordinators, teachers, etc. On page 9, the student transportation, under students, we added a bullet at the bottom. All changes to the bus ridership must be approved by the school administration. The bus company section was just some rewording, but the same bullets. And under funding, we added the first bullet, student and family connections. And that brings us down to the appendix section, and guess what? You've heard me mention it 2 or 3 more times. Appendix E was added for quarantine support, and Appendix F was added for unfinished learning support. And those are the changes to our reopening plan, which will be sent off to the state, and will be, as I said, posted as of tomorrow on the district website. Questions on that?
Thank you for that update on the reopening plan.
You are welcome.
Our next agenda item is the curriculum overview. Sarah and Lisa?
Okay, while they're getting settled, I'll wait till I see the title slide. There we go. Good evening, and thank you to our school board members for this opportunity to give an overview presentation of the Derry Cooperative School District curriculum. What we all know as the word curriculum is really a general term that encompasses curriculum, instruction, learning, and assessment. It is what we teach, how we teach, what students learn, and the results of that student learning. Although the last few school years have been challenging for students and staff alike, we have continued to update and improve our curriculum and instruction in order to positively affect student learning. And therefore, we decided the time was right to provide a curriculum overview to you. Wait a minute. I was supposed to read it this way. Therefore, we decided the time was right to provide a curriculum overview to you tonight. Thank you. Along with my role as assistant superintendent, the we I am referring to includes my 2 curriculum directors, Lisa Long, director of mathematics, and Dr. Sarah Taylor, director of literacy. They both have their specific content area of expertise, but they are invaluable to me, the teaching staff, and our students for their research, design, planning, implementation, and evaluation of all content areas district-wide. With that in mind, I will now turn over the presentation to Lisa and Sarah.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Okay? Okay. Within this, overview, we're going to review what drives our instruction, how we plan and prioritize the curriculum, when we provide instruction, who and why we plan instruction for, and finally, where you can find information on our curriculum, instruction, learning, and assessments. So let's start with what drives our curriculum design and planning. Derry's curriculum design and planning is driven by our district's mission, vision, and goals. As displayed in our district logo at the top of this graphic, our main focus is our students and the dispositions they need to become successful adults, including perseverance, problem solving, and collaboration. This focus drives our district's mission, which is to provide learning for all in a safe and supportive community. This mission is then built upon the pillars of learning, growth, and connection. These pillars keep us focused on supporting our mission. Under the pillars is our vision. Our vision provides a strong foundation for accomplishing the mission. Our vision is to create a dynamic learning community that adapts to the needs of all learners. To progress towards that vision, we've identified 3 district-wide goals for this 2021-2022 school year. Connecting to our learning pillar, our goal is to focus on differentiated small group instruction. Connecting to our growth pillar, our goal is that all students will make growth academically, socially, and emotionally. Connecting to our connection pillar, our goal is to provide a learning environment where everyone belongs. Our district's mission, vision, and goals are what drives our curriculum design and planning. So now we're going to talk about how we plan and prioritize our curriculum. When we're planning and prioritizing curriculum, we first start with the New Hampshire state standards. Standards are the end of the year targets that students work towards proficiency in grade level expectations. Currently, each content area is working towards identifying and prioritizing the major work of each grade level, which may be called leverage, priority, essential, or power standards. Prioritizing curriculum and learning targets allows students to demonstrate a deeper understanding of the major focus of curriculum, instruction, learning, and assessments. It's important to think about curriculum as the overarching skills that we want our students to know and be able to do by the end of the year, which are the standards. This is the destination we want our students to reach. Then we have programs, materials, and resources to help get them to that destination, providing scaffolds and supplements for students as necessary. With this, our programs, materials, and resources do not define our curriculum. They are used to structure and support what we have outlined as a curriculum. Once our standards and learning targets are identified, we then use our knowledge of student learning and district-wide data to inform curriculum decisions, such as implementing research-based instructional models and materials. We also use assessment data to determine where students are in terms of meeting proficiency towards the standards. Using multiple points of data, teachers plan for differentiated small group instruction. Informal and formal assessments are continuously used to monitor and adjust instruction to meet all students where they are. Ultimately, it is crucial to give students voice and choice in order to increase their engagement and motivation in learning. Students having voice and choice means giving them the opportunity to direct some aspects of their own learning. When students have more autonomy, they take ownership of their learning and are able to transfer skills and knowledge they have learned to new ideas and applications.
So next, how and when do we provide instruction? Well, one of our primary instructional tools is the workshop model. The workshop model essentially has 4 parts: an opening, a focus lesson, time for application and practice, and a closing or reflection. The opening is intended to launch thinking and initiate engagement. The focus lesson provides direct instruction on a specific learning target, idea, or skill. The time for application and practice can vary depending on the subject area, the unit of instruction, and the individual needs of students. This part of instruction may include application of the focus lesson's learning target, practicing and reinforcing previously taught skills, meeting in a small group with the teacher, or completing an extension or a stretching activity. The closing and reflection is intended to be a time for students to share their learning from the day's learning target. Although the workshop model is a key instructional tool across grade levels and across subject areas, there is flexibility based on the specific learning targets in each subject area and meeting the instructional needs of students.
Now we talk about who we plan instruction for and why we plan instruction. Our students are our primary focus when designing, planning, and implementing curriculum, instruction, learning, and assessments. Supporting students and helping them grow drives our work every day. Our vision of success for our students includes the development of 6 key dispositions. These dispositions are problem solving, self-motivation, perseverance, community contribution, and self-awareness. Looking at this graphic, our district logo, you can see that the center of our work is our students. Our goal is to support them as they learn, grow, and connect while building their skills as innovative, collaborative, 21st century thinkers.
So now where can you find curriculum, instruction, and assessment information for our district? Our school district website includes a detailed information for each subject area curriculum. It also includes updated information for instruction, assessment, and other family resources. Our district website address is sau10.org. To navigate to our curriculum information, as well as other instructional resources, click on Families tab, and then choose Curriculum. Please note that there is other information provided under that Families tab that you might find useful in addition to curriculum.
Curriculum instruction, learning and assessment can be complicated. There's a great deal involved in it. Remember, this is just an overview. Lisa just gave some information of where you can get more information about our curriculum. Always the first step is the teacher, and within the school, the administration that's in the school, as well as people like our curriculum directors and myself over at the SAU. So thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Sarah. Thanks for coming tonight. Thanks for putting this presentation together. School board, thank you for letting us present this tonight, and we will entertain any questions.
It's because we did a great job. Woo!
Yeah, I actually have a couple questions. Thank you guys for coming out tonight and doing this. How much time would you say a teacher spends on average building their curriculum?
Wow, that's a really good
Immeasurable
question.
hours. Immeasurable hours.
Yeah.
And it's multi-layered. You know, we have teams that work together for many hours, and then on an individual day-to-day, I couldn't even begin to calculate.
And would you say this work gets done both inside of school hours as well as outside of school hours?
Yes, curriculum planning in particular is probably the majority outside school hours.
We have committees that meet during the summer, and then those committees take it to their buildings, and then the teams, the grade levels, and then the individual teachers, they work Countless hours.
And then from a flexibility standpoint, how much goes into that where I know a lot of us understand like, all right, well, I understand math, like adding is adding, subtracting is subtracting. Obviously, there's different ways that kids learn throughout the years, but even year to year, how much thought goes into that idea of having to be flexible or teaching to each individual kid's needs?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned flexibility because curriculum planning, you kind of have a map, but year to year, kids change. Our targets might change, like this year in particular, our targets are very different than they have been the last few for a variety of reasons. But as you mentioned, year to year, kids change. So yes, we have general maps of curriculum, but having that flexibility to meet the needs of the kids where they are and what they need in that time is the most important.
And we're generating lists of I can statements that are very student and family friendly, so that when you come to a content area, it says I can add and subtract. I can read this. And can they, or can't they, and what do I need to do as a teacher to help supplement their instruction, to help make it so they can?
And then one last question, I think. So I understand we have a very skilled group of teachers. Can you speak to the committees that you have on the curriculum team and kind of some of the expertise that they have or the levels of education that they've reached?
And we could probably speak most specifically about the math and literacy teams, although there are skilled teams in the other subject areas, but we work particularly with those two. But for the math committee, I've been working with that curriculum committee before being a director just because of my background in math, and I would say more than half of the committee is a committee that's been working together for years with a lot of expertise and a lot of experience. But then we also add additional it's an amazing team that works well together. We work through the summer, not every day obviously, but we plan days and we look at data from the year before. We look at feedback from how their year went and how their kids ended the year, and we plan for the next year. And then that same team gets together to roll out information to their peers. And then throughout the year, we meet periodically to check in, see if where we need to add some more support, and they're a great group of teachers.
The literacy committee has also very strong teachers in all grade levels. I came here in late September of 2019 and got to know some of these teachers, and then, COVID hit. So, but they worked with me online. They came in the spring, this last spring, to do a special project after school and help get leverage standards for elementary literacy. We're doing the same thing for middle school. And they worked with me during summer institutes, during a Teachers College Institute, and then extra time after that. I have reading specialists on that team as well, so it's not just classroom teachers. I have literacy specialists helping us do that work. So, and there used to be only one teacher representative per grade level, and I'm beefing that up so it's about 2 from representative schools. So each school is represented.
Thank you for answering my questions. You guys do great, a lot of great work throughout the year, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jonathan, having been part of those committees for years, I think too, the teacher's expertise speaks volumes. They come in with their own examples and their own examples of success with students, be it, a finite success or be it a comprehensive success. And they share that with others, be it during a grade level, a team meeting, and be it during the summer where it's a little more relaxed, vertical and horizontally in terms of grade level and grade span. And I really believe, besides the research-based practices, it's also really advantageous to share the everyday practices they do. And that's what really moves and really connects that learning growth and connections and moves the growth with our students, that personal expertise that our teachers are so valuable at being able to share.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any other questions for Austin, Sarah, or Lisa? If not, thank you all 3 of you for your presentation and for
pulling it together.
Lisa and Sarah, great job, and you're going to be mentioned tonight in policy ACA and the development of our plan. So if you're on the ride home, you know that you are instrumental in the development of the plan that will be presented tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Our next agenda tonight is policy. Marianne?
Okay. All the policies tonight are going for a first read. Austin will present the first three, and then I will follow. So thank you in advance for listening.
So, a committee, a volunteer committee made up of Laura Powers, who's two down here from me on my right, Kim Carpentino, Melanie Curran, Melissa Lance, and Mitch Edwards. We worked over a few months from the end of the summer up until through November, and putting together a new student code of conduct. Now, there is a code of conduct in the handbook as we speak. I don't even believe it's titled a code of conduct, but levels of discipline and so forth, and examples of behaviors and the such. Progressive discipline is in my opinion, we have been doing this in Derry long before it has become an RSA and become mandated. When you see, we just mentioned about all the work, the great work that the teachers do. When you see a teacher in the classroom and they give the student a look, that look might become, quote unquote, the hairy eyeball. It might be a walk past the student's desk. It might be a little tap on the desk. It might be a pause in their lesson for a moment of silence, just so that when the teacher stops talking, a lot of times if they're in the middle of something, the kids will, taking the kid out, asking the student to move to the hallway and have on and on and on. It happens all the time, this progressive discipline, and we've always, in my opinion, in Derry, we've looked at looking at behaviors and the discipline process as a learning process. That this is something that we are trying to show the student that they can make a better choice. So that is the basis of what this was developed on, and when we went through this, just glancing through quickly, it talks about progressive discipline, and the framework of progressive discipline talks about how for the same offense, you might not treat it the same for a preschool student as you would an 8th grader, and of course there's ranges in between that, what that disciplinary response may be. We talked about managing a student's school environment, managing a student's learning experience, managing a student's behavioral expectations. We identified minor behaviors, moderate behaviors, major behaviors. We gave some examples, always indicating including but not limited to, with the idea that there's an overlap here, and also emphasizing frequency. Is this a first offense? Is this a repeated behavior and the student is struggling to learn to make those new choices? So all of these things are taken into account. I thank the policy committee. I think they did a good job. There's a lot here. It is a 6-page document. The thought process would be that if it goes to the second reading and gets voted in, it will then immediately replace what's in the student handbook now, and it will become part of the student handbook moving forward, student family handbook. So before I move, I'll just ask, are there any questions on student code of conduct. And this is part of student conduct, which is policy JIC, so this will be JIC-R.
So Austin, is this the kind of thing we'd be having students sign that they agree to follow? Because at the beginning of the year, we have students and parents sign things.
We have them sign the handbook, so this would be part of the handbook. So the idea would be that they would have read the student conduct as well. So in signing the student handbook, yes, that's what that would be. Okay. Policy GBK, staff concerns, complaints, and grievances. This is another policy that we're moving forward along the lines of chain of command and following procedures, which, we've talked about this before, about things sometimes come to the school board or they come to the superintendent before going through proper channels, and we all try to make sure, well, did you speak to so-and-so? Did you start with the teacher and those type of things? So there's not a great deal of changes in this. There was the word dispute in here, which we used the title, and anywhere it said dispute, it now says concerns, complaints, grievances, or other personnel issues. Because across the board, people should be bringing it to their immediate supervisor. They should be bringing it to a building level administrator before it goes to the superintendent. It should always come to the superintendent prior to it coming to you folks, if it ever. And the thought process would be that more often than not, it's going to stop right at the teacher level, and it's not even going to necessarily get to the build. And if it does get to the building level, more often than not, those things are handled at the building level, and they do not need to move forward to the superintendent. So that is policy GBK. Any questions on that? And then policy GBI, staff participation in political activities. Our lawyers, this is one policy that was suggested that we take a look at. It is staff participation in political activities and just the way of the world right now. Again, not a great deal of changes here. The second paragraph was turned into a bulleted paragraph, and there was a few minor changes, but we wanted it to be updated as of this year. And those, any questions on GBI?
Thank you, Austin. I think I have the rather lengthy one at the end, if you can bear with me. Okay, I will present IJOC for revision. That is school volunteers. The second sentence has been added, and I'll read it out loud. The Derry Cooperative School District considers all volunteers to be designated volunteers. And it ends with that. It goes on to say our staff and students benefit from these dedicated individuals, which we know and appreciate all of our school volunteers. But that is one of the most significant changes. That sentence has been added to the first paragraph, and the first paragraph has been reworked with our policy committee as such. Other changes and pretty minor changes in the policy. One of them is if you register for one school, you are then registered for other schools that you sign up for at that time. Previous to this, in the policy anyway, was that if you register for one school, you had to register for each school as you did that. So in order to make this more expeditious and really easier for parents, guardians, and volunteers, it's just an easier way to do things. And then the designated volunteer section has remained in the latter part of the policy. Designated volunteers will be required to undergo a background investigation and a criminal records check in accordance with policy GBCD. So there you have it for most of the changes that I have gone over in the policy IJOC. Then went to policy committee. Then we discussed this with our administrative team and went back to policy committee. I do have changes to the form accompanying this as well that I'll explain. The form is attached. The last 4 sections of the form, and the form is called the Volunteer Service Statement and Agreement. The 4th section from the bottom that I have read and understand, the Derry Cooperative School District's policies. The only change to that is it actually stipulates the policies this time. The policies were left off for some reason in the last form. When I was comparing and contrasting the forms, the policies were left off. So it says policies IJOC and IJOC-R. The last 3 sections of this form are new, and they really revolve around the training that we provide now and actually mandate for volunteers that it's the online training. That once I receive child abuse mandatory reporting training link, I will complete the training and provide the certificate to school prior to volunteering. The next section states that once the training certificate's on file, the volunteer will complete the district-required background check, including the fingerprinting in the office of the superintendent, and understands that satisfactory results of the criminal background and fingerprinting must be done prior to being allowed to volunteer. So not only fingerprinting, but once fingerprinting is done, the background check is done, and in between that, the person can do, the prospective volunteer can do the training. All 3 of those must be complied with prior to a volunteer beginning. Are there any questions about either of those sections changes to IJOC? Okay, I will move on to IJOC-R, which is important regulations for volunteers. There are some minor changes to this policy, starting with number 2 on the top, sign in. We sign in and out electronically now, as we know, for staff and volunteers, so it's really, the second one is replaced with report to the office and sign in and out electronically. And then in number 4, in the terms of cancellation, if illness or any emergency arises, please notify the school office before school begins or as soon as possible. We used to have a time on there, so we changed it to be a little more generic. Those are the basic changes in that, those sections of the policy. We added principal or designee, so instead of just notify the building principal, we added designee. We are doing that to most of our policies. And in addition to that, instead of his or her, we replace, typically in our policies now, we replace his or her by the word their, THEIR. So we did that in accordance with this policy as well. I think those are the only basic changes to this policy, IJOC-R. Any questions from anyone about that? Okay. Now we move on to the one that I will try to summarize as quickly as possible. This is a plan called, it's in accordance with policy ACA. So you don't have policy ACA in front of you. ACA, I will let you know, is the Anti-Harassment and Discrimination Policy. Within the Anti-Harassment and Discrimination Policy, it calls for a coordinated written district anti-discrimination plan. And we've been working on this, I would say, for well over a year. And the calls for an anti-discrimination plan to be developed and provided to the school board for approval. So this is lengthy because we have taken our time to work on it to suffice all the components that the policy says that must be sufficed within the anti-discrimination plan. In developing this, oftentimes there are prototypes that we can go by. For this, there was a lack of a prototype. So we had to develop this from scratch. In doing so, we learned a lot. We learned also that it would be great as we get further on in the explanation this evening, and I won't keep you here all evening, by the way, but as we get further on in the explanation, that the forms now would be great to align with another policy that we have, which is bullying prevention. So we will address that with the policy committee, but one thing at a time. So the policy explains what should be included in the plan, including but not limited to provisions and recommendations with respect to resources, policies, complaint procedures, which you'll see in the forms, by the way, student education programs, which are outlined in the plan, plan dissemination and appropriate training necessary to carry out this plan. So what is the training necessary to carry out the plan? In developing this plan over the past year plus, the following committee members have spent considerable time, energy, they've had a lot of patience, done a lot of research, and done extensive collaboration to follow policy recommendations while really developing this plan into one that can be implemented within each school community. And I'd like to recognize the following committee members at this time and really express my gratitude to them. This is a continuing committee too. We will continue to reflect on this, look at it, make the recommendations if you so choose after this first reading. And this plan has to be updated anyway every 2 years. But if you have recommendations in between, or we do, certainly we'd do that. Dr. Garofalo, Director of Human Resources, Kathy Kennedy, Director of Mathematics, Lisa Long, who was here just a few minutes ago, Director of Literacy, Dr. Sarah Taylor, Interim Director of Student Services, who's sitting down there at the end, Laura Powers, Assistant Director of Student Services, Gerald White, East Derry Memorial Elementary School Principal Bill Fox, West Running Principal Justin Krieger, West Running Assistant Principal Ginger Drexel, Gilbert H. Hood Middle School Assistant Principal Jolene McWhorter, Derry Village Assistant Principal Melanie Curran, and myself. We all worked together on this. I think we were a really great team. There were a lot of meetings, and I think it was certainly well worth it. The first document you have is a summary. You should have a summary of the policy. That is akin to a summary that you would see of the bullying prevention policy. So the bullying prevention policy has a summary. This is very similar to it, except it summarizes policy ACA. I will not read it word for word. However, it is very, very similar to the policy summary that you will see for bullying prevention. Any questions on that? Okay. The next part that you will see is the most comprehensive part of the plan. It's called the Anti-Discrimination Plan, and this is really a step-by-step procedure of the components that need to be included in the plan, and really more. So this entails the components that must be included in the plan per the policy. It includes a little more. It's outlined. Lisa Long did an exceptional job in organizing this. She's an extremely detailed educator, as we know, an administrator, as we know, and she did an exceptional job organizing this plan in terms of each subtitle and so forth. It defines the purpose. The first part defines the purpose. The second part defines the definition of harassment. The third part, as you see, defines the student complaint procedure. And there I'll stop for a minute. There's a student complaint procedure, and then there's an employee complaint procedure. So you'll see the difference in that as we go along. You'll also see the difference in one of the checklists as we go along. One is for students and one is for employees. Those are the main differences you'll see in the plan. You'll also see under student complaint procedure, we talk about principal or designee. We're trying to keep very consistent. And you'll also see in number 3, under student complaint procedure, I'm still on page 1, the words complainant and respondent. So you'll see that language used throughout this plan. On page 2, you can refer to the example of resources for prevention and remediation. The plan, or the policy, ACA, spoke of the need for, to explain about resources that we use. And that section there talks about comprehensive guidance curriculum. It speaks to school culture and community programs that are included but not limited to. And the reason for that statement, we often use that statement, because our resources change and develop and assimilate to our students' needs. So we meet students where they are, and they change from time to time. So they're included but not limited to the following resources, such as Choose Love, the responsive classroom, and small group work and individual group work to prevent, process, and remediate incidents of any harassment. The next section is the implementation. How does a policy get implemented? That includes some of the training as well. And part of the training I asked for families is I contacted our lead counselor or our counselor team leader, and they are contemplating just putting together a video for families that will explain this in a very succinct, simple manner. And that would be the training for families, and that would be posted on our website. So a very simple training that would go through the steps of this process. Our related policies and procedures, which is required by policy ACA. What are the related policies and procedures? There are a number embedded in here. One is policy GBAA, one is policy KED, you have policy ACE, policy JICK. So any of the other related policies and procedures are identified in this document. Now you get to page 3. And page 3 talks about the investigation and remedial action. And again, this is the student section. So what happens? And the initial part talks about the 5-day timeline. So the principal or designee begins an investigation of the alleged acts of harassment or discrimination within 5 school days of receiving the school district's harassment discrimination initial report. And then it goes on to talk about the completion within 7 days or the extension that is allowed. There's an extension allowed upon written request to the superintendent. The process is outlined in the steps that you see on page 3. Continue to page 4. There is a 9-step process. As you move on to page 4, there is a separate investigation and remedial action process for employees, still going by the 5 and 7 day process. So the timeline is still followed. The extension is still embedded in there as well. And talks more about the human resources director's involvement in this as well for employees. So I know there is certainly a lot of steps here, but they're very sequential. And I believe it's outlined, this plan is outlined very well with the subsections added. Any questions so far? We went through this a lot, and I know Austin and Laura, you were at all the meetings, because once we went through it, we're like, oh, we didn't suffice that part of the policy. We didn't suffice that part of the policy. And we wanted to make sure that this was extremely comprehensive. The forms that you will see really back up what's in the plan. So these are draft forms because it's a first reading. So the first form that you have under Anti-Harassment and Discrimination Policy ACA is the Harassment Discrimination Initial Report. This is due, and the principal or designee has to submit this to the superintendent within 24 hours. It's a very clean, clear-cut report, very simple, but it certainly does its job in the documentation phase. The second form that you have is the Harassment Discrimination Final Report. Has to be submitted to the superintendent within 7 school days unless a request is asked for. The third and fourth documents that you have in front of you are also draft. They're called the Harassment Discrimination Report and Intervention Checklist. One is for students, one is for employees. The major difference between the two is that the notification within 48 hours on the first one for students does not exist for employees because the notification has to go to parent guardian for students, and we don't need to notify the parent guardian of an employee. Therein lies the difference in the notification aspect on the two forms. This is a great checklist to make sure that steps are not skipped. So I think in doing so, kind of circling back to the beginning of what I said, it would be great for us, we thought as a committee, that if we went back and looked at our bullying prevention policy and aligned those forms so that we don't have one set of forms for one policy and the other set of forms for another, align them as closely as we could to, again, achieve more consistency within our district. Do you have any questions about what I just presented as part of policy ACA?
I don't have any questions, but I just want to thank you and all the members of the committee for your work on that. It was obviously a very large project, and it's a very important thing to have, so thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? If not, we will move on to the superintendent's update, as those were all first readings.
Okay, thank you. Just want to put this away for 1 minute. And thanks to the team again for a great job. Okay. I had lots of congratulations tonight for all of our Patriots Pen winners and the participants, and Erica DeCina, I already said that, and I know us and I are looking forward to getting together with our students at West Runnybrook and hearing their story. If they feel comfortable, I told them, and we'll be in a large room with one of their administrators, and there's only a few of them, so we're looking forward to that next week, as long as their comfort level is there. So that'll be a fun time to listen to their essays and see and really hear what they had to say. It's really important. It's important to us, and I think that's what, being a good leader is all about, and listening to our kids. As you know, a survey to gather input requiring the use of ESSER funding was sent out on December 1st to staff and families. A link to the survey was also posted on our Derry Cooperative School website for community members to participate. And I wanted to just quickly review the survey results. The survey closed on December 8th, and we're grateful to all those who completed the survey. So thank you very, very much to those of you who are listening or those of you who are going to watch this later. So following is a brief summary of the results. We had 1,110 responses from families, which is great. The first question is, what do you think should be the district's first priority? 48.8% said social emotional well-being. 27.6% listed interrupted learning during COVID-19 pandemic as B. So what do you think should be the district's second priority from that pool? Social emotional well-being was their second priority for 34.7%, and for B, interrupted learning was 30.6%. In terms of staff responses, we had 249. What do you think should be the district's first priority? 55.4% said social emotional well-being. And remember, in contrast to the 48.8% of our families. And what do you think should be the district's second priority? 32.9% said social emotional well-being, very close to the family's response, which was 34.7%. So the percentages were relatively close for our families and our staff. We had one community member respond. And what do you think should be the district's first priority? Social emotional well-being. What do you think should be the district's second priority? Technology. And what do you think should be the district's third priority? Because there was only one interrupted learning during the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think we are all very, very grateful for those responses, and we'll continue to use our ESSER funds accordingly. Kindergarten registration, I just want to remind everyone listening, for the 22-23 school year will open on Monday, January 10th at 8 a.m. At that time, parents, guardians will be able to click a link on the district website to register their child for kindergarten. If you need any more information, you have any questions regarding where your child will attend school, please call us at the superintendent's office. We are open during the school vacation. We are open, 603-432-1210, and we look forward to having our newest kindergarten students and families join the Derry Cooperative School District learning community, where students, and you've heard it tonight, learn, grow, and connect. So call us and with any questions that you may have about the process, or if you're not sure where your child will go to school. Another congratulations is extended to Holly Whitney, mathematics teacher at West Runnybrook Middle School. Holly's been chosen along with one other math teacher as a state finalist for the Presidential Award for Excellence in Science and Mathematics Teaching. So congratulations to Holly. They are awaiting a final announcement from the White House. On December 2nd, Holly attended the Celebrating Leadership and Education banquet as she was recognized as a state finalist. So we're extremely grateful for Holly's dedication and commitment to excellence in teaching and connecting with students. So thank you, Holly, and we look forward to honoring her at a later date at one of the award meetings I've asked her to attend Always, again, has a smile on her face and extremely optimistic, engaging with students, and always goes above and beyond. Since the beginning of November, 25 staffing positions have been filled, and I'll go down the list quickly. So specifically, those staffing positions consist of 1 adult ed, 1 coach, 1 family engagement coordinator, 2 custodians, 2 teachers, 2 NECC instructional tutors, 2 reading assistants, 1 school secretary, 7 special education assistants, and 6 on-call substitutes. So that's really positive news for us. We still have vacancies for the following positions, so if you're interested, please call us at 603-432-1210 or visit our website for an online application. Assistant Director of Student Services, a psychologist coordinator, a school psychologist, a licensed clinical therapist, 3 Title I math assistants, a Title I reading assistant, 2 elementary reading assistants, 12 special education assistants. That has gone down. So that's we're stepping in the right direction. 3 speech and language pathologists, 3 NECC instructional tutors, 5 custodians, and 4 child nutrition cook servers. So if you know anyone, you have any friends out there who may be looking for some employment, I don't think there's any better place to work than the Derry Cooperative School District. I may be a little biased, however, I know you're not. At this time, numbers indicate that Rockingham County and Derry continue to be at a substantial level. The number of newly identified COVID-19 cases in our school district for the week of December 16th through the 10th totaled 69 cases. A lot of parents see the number of cases that go out through your school. Sometimes you probably don't have time to click on the website and see the total number of cases that we have. So oftentimes I think the school board minutes or the actual live stream is a good place for you to listen to the actual number of total-wide cases that has been increasing. So we continue to be at a substantial level. Current face covering status continues to be at a substantial level. And the update from Rockingham County, as of today, the PCR test positivity is a 7-day average is 11.8%. And the number of new infections per 100,000 population over 14 days, 1,159. Those are extremely high numbers. Those are the highest that I have had to report this year. So in looking at our numbers, you know, both at Rockingham County and obviously in our schools, in our trending up, it's important to note there's been an increase in positive cases within our schools since the Thanksgiving break. Certainly this is consistent in what we've seen in our community, in our state, in our county, and certainly in our nation. This past week, there were 69 cases reported in the district. As I said, we had 65 students and actually 4 staff. However, the data showed that 79% of those cases were in school during their infectious period, and the infectious period is considered 48 hours prior to the onset of symptoms of testing positive. So, certainly as we approach the holiday season and the extended break, it's really important for all of us to continue our vigilance, to continue our mitigation strategies as we do here, and just to keep those numbers in mind for families to continue to stay healthy, and just for me to bring it to our public's attention that certainly that's important for me to do, and important to know that we are continuing to stress our mitigation strategies in schools, in our school community, and thank you for all you're doing at home as well to keep students home with their signs of illness. And we know it's not easy. We definitely know that presents a hardship on families, and we appreciate all your support and help. The public hearing on the 22-23 proposed budget will be held on Tuesday, January 11th. That'll be our next meeting. 2022 beginning at 6:30 in the West Running Brook Middle School cafeteria. The deliberative session will be held on Saturday, February 5th, beginning at 10 a.m. at West Running Brook Middle School in the gymnasium. Town and school board elections will take place on Tuesday, March 8th, and polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. There are 3 school board seats open in 2022. The filing period will open on Wednesday, January 19th, and will close on Friday, January 28th, 2022 at 5 p.m. Beginning on January 19th, applications may be downloaded from the district's website, or They may be picked up at the office of the superintendent of schools, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Applications will be accepted by the school district clerk, Mrs. Mary Ellen Tagliatella, 18 South Main Street, at the office of the superintendent of schools until 5 p.m. on January 28th. So the office is open from 8 to 4, yet on January 28th, applications will be accepted until 5 p.m., just on that day. Applications will only be accepted in person from the applicant at the time of filing. And last but not least, the holiday break will begin for students and teaching staff at the close of school on Wednesday, December 22nd, and will extend through January 2nd, 2022. School will resume on Monday, January 3rd, 2022. So on behalf of our entire Derry Cooperative School District leadership team, I wish our students, staff, our community, our families, and our school board a healthy and wonderful holiday season and new year, one that's filled with kindness and optimism for the future. We are most grateful for our students, and certainly we wish for them all the snow they ask for before school resumes on January 3rd, not after. So I'm hoping for all of our students who love snow to get it all in before January 3rd and after December 22nd. So that leaves a plenty of window. And then on January 3rd, we're back, because already I can't wait to get them back, and we haven't even started our break yet. So, and really, I mean that. No snow after January 3rd. Actually, from January 3rd on, because we want our kids in school. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Mary Ann. Jane, Business Administrator's update?
Okay. I handed out a summary page. It's the same one that I've given out at each of our budget committee meetings. It's the proposed budget for 22-23. And this is the summary page that will be presented at the public hearing. It was most updated on January 11th after our we finalized our, I'm sorry, it's not updated on the 11th. The meeting will be on the 11th. It was updated after our last budget meeting, and any changes that happened after the last budget meeting were reflective in this summary sheet. And the back page has any of the changes that we've made from the first budget presentation. Any of the additions and subtractions will all be noted on the back. And I have a small, just a couple page PowerPoint just to give a summary to anybody who's watching who just wants an update on the budget that's going to be presented at the public hearing. We've completed all of our budget meetings, and we want to make sure that we thank both the school board, all the administration directors, and our fiscal advisory committee members for the budget that we're bringing forward to the public hearing. If Mr. Minkle's going to control my slides for me, since we just have a couple of them, I just want to review the first slide just shows the estimated revenues and general revenue that we'd be receiving, which includes unreserved fund balances. It also includes, we did increase the unreserved fund balance estimate because the district received about $727,000 in a health trust rebate, and that's the second rebate we've received, and that's due to change in usage due to COVID. So less people were out at their doctor's appointments, and so it greatly affected the usage for all of our health insurance, and portions of the rebate will go back to the employees, and the net amount to the district was about $727,000. So we did increase that, but you'll still see that it's a reduction overall from our current year's estimates that were used during tax rate setting of about $1.1 million. Again, as we see the year go on and see what we think our unreserved fund balance is, that number will change as we go through the year. Adequacy was down 1.14 million over the current, increased 1.14 million over the current fiscal year. However, even though it increased, there were changes to the SWEPT tax rate, which is the statewide education property tax, which is for 1 year, which is going to be a change in the way you see it on your tax bill and the way that it's estimated, use it with adequacy. So the idea was that there were less SWEPT funds to support districts, and it would be made up increasing the adequacy funds. But for Derry, we did have a reduction from the original estimate that they were using, the actuals of October 1 of 2019 and the actuals of October 1 of 2021. And there was about 165 fewer students that were used in the calculation, and there were also less free and reduced students that were calculated. So again, I can't stress the importance enough of parents to complete those free and reduced applications. It's very important because it directly affects the amount of money that the district receives for adequacy. So if you can see in that chart, we are going to receive 1.1 more in adequacy than the current year and 1.8 less in state adequacy. So there is a net loss overall of our combined revenues of 1.8 million, which would have to be made up, generated through local taxation. Again, when we go to do tax rate setting, we revisit all of our revenues at that time in October, and I do that with the State Department of Revenue. And so the revenues will change, the tax impact estimate will change based on new information that we receive as we go into tax rate setting. Special education aid may change, Medicaid may change, revised adequacy numbers will change. Adequacy will be revisited as we go to the end of the year based on any additional free and reduced, any additional students that we receive in our district. That will increase our amount of adequacy. So that is a flexible amount of money that typically changes prior to tax rate setting. The second slide, if we go, this is general fund expenditures only. I just wanted to break it out from pre-K through grade 8. There is a 0.42% increase overall on the budget from this year to the proposed next year, which is a increase of $263,774.70, which is also $102,453 under the default budget. Now, if you remember, the default budget is your prior year's approved budget plus any additions or subtractions based on contracts. So for example, as you'll see when we go down, next charter school in Pinkerton, any increases to those numbers also are reflected in your default budget. So if you look at the next charter school, there is an increase of $115,000. The majority of that is due to the increase in numbers of students projected, so it's a 17.7% increase. Pinkerton Academy General Ed is a 0.34% overall increase from one year to the other, which equates to $76,000. Again, that's based on numbers of students. When we were going through the budget process, the school board, fiscal advisory, administration, we all agreed to reduce our projections by 30 students, and that's why there's only a $76,000 increase. Pinkerton Academy Special Education is an increase of 6.9% overall in the program, which equates to a $360,000 increase. As a note, again, those same groups during the budget process, We reduced the overall Pinkerton special education budget by $700,000. And that was due to historical usage and numbers of students who may go in or out of that program. Going on to our budget summary slide, just want to give you a couple of areas, so points of interest of what was in the budget. We calculate our classrooms by numbers of students in the classroom and school board goals. So we would net adding one classroom teaching position. That $90,000 is salary and benefits, adding a part-time human resource assistant, adding Big Ideas Learning Math journals for middle school. We also looked at adding elementary school subscription, online subscription, and journals for the math program, and that because it's new material, it's not new curriculum, but it's just new additional materials, that will be coming out of ESSER, so we're only having the middle school included in our general fund. There's a wage pool there for non-union staff included. There's no increase in the budget because for the two unions, which is the assistants union or the teachers union, because those are in negotiations. Although when I wrote this, it was before you accepted the vote to ratify the AFSCME contract. The AFSCME contract will be on a warrant article, and the anticipated or estimated tax impact will be 7 cents on that contract. Health insurance is a maximum increase of a rate of 2.1%. Our bond overall decreased $35,000, and transportation increased $23,000. That's based on the contract. Excuse me. So the total impact from this current fiscal year to next year is an increase of an estimated 0.74 cents. And again, I'm just reiterating what Mary Ann said, that please join us for the public hearing on Tuesday, January 11th here at West Running Brook. We will have a full presentation of the proposed budget, but I just wanted to give some highlights for the public so that they can see where we are going into the public hearing in case you have any questions or would like to see anything to clarify the budget on the presentation. As a note, both myself and Bill Roy, our staff accountant, both participated in a presentation by Mark Manganello from the New Hampshire DOE Division of Analytics and Resources to explain the swept account calculations and the adequacy that we're going to be looking at for 22-23. And that presentation was also available in a download version to rewatch it. A lot of the school districts needed clarification, including myself, on what actual number we should be using for our calculations for next year. So that was a really helpful presentation that the DOE put on for all of us. The formulas, I think, it's very complicated. There are different fiscal years that they use in their calculations. There's grade 3 numbers that they use, free and reduced. English learners are included. Special education numbers are calculated into those formulas. So it's a pretty complicated formula and a lot of columns to go through, but I appreciate Mark from the DOE for giving an outstanding presentation to help all of us understand it a little bit better. So right now we are 3 cents on the tax rate under default and 74 cents over the current rate in proposed budget. I think that's all I have. That's it, unless anybody has any other questions. We're also going through all of our ESSER expenditures, and we're continuing to revise the grants. We have requests that come in pretty much daily from different departments in the district. And we've been, I think, very creative during the budget process for a lot of the positions that the district really needs. And fortunately, we have ESSER funds to be able to divert some of those necessary positions to ESSER funds as opposed to adding them to a tax impact for the general fund. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Jane, I have 2 questions. One, how can we be reduced, how can there be a reduction for free and reduced lunch when we didn't have people applying last year or this year because lunch is free? Is that just because we lost that many students, or are they using some formula that calculates, I don't know what?
Yeah, thank you. They actually are using a formula from 2019 and 2021. So they're actually going back the year before COVID to capture districts' highest or a typical year of free and reduced. And then they compare it to this year. And we did lose quite a bit of free and reduced, even with that formulation. They have a percentage that they take. And I apologize, I didn't bring my notes for that one, but I'm just doing that one off the top of my head. But families still filled out free and reduced applications since 2019, 2020. They're still filling them out this year. Just not as many people have qualified, but we still encourage families to fill those out because we know that families' financial situations can change at any time. And like I said, not only do those free and reduced numbers affect adequacy, it affects our federal programming too, IDEA and other federal funds. So
are people filling out the applications in the same number that we would have gotten pre-COVID? Or, because I don't know that people really understand the impact of filling out that application when it doesn't really affect their children getting fed.
Right, and you make a good point, because this year and last year, they were going to get free meals regardless.
Right.
So what's been interesting is I am the food service does the original approval process, and they send it to me for a verification. So I see every application that comes through, and what's interesting is that we've had like a wide range of families who have filled them out. Families who far exceed qualifying, and a lot that were in the middle. We're just not seeing the ones that really we're hoping that fill out, and those are the ones who are in the qualifying group. So I think a lot of them thought that it's something they had to fill out because they were way out of the range of qualifying. So I think that we just have to do more outreach. I know that the home to school coordinators work really closely with the families that they work with to try to help them to fill out those applications. Because if the food program goes away from the USDA, if they decide at some point that the program's not going to be free anymore, families still want to have been approved if they qualify, so that next year they are still in a qualifying status up until the middle of October, where they would have to reapply. So that's mainly why we want them, for their benefit, to do it. And then a district, and it's financially beneficial for the district. But even though that they're getting it for free this year, it will help them next year if the program goes away.
Okay, thanks. That's what I was thinking. That was it.
Yeah.
The other question I have is, and I don't know, I didn't have a chance to read up enough on this, but I understand that the Legislative Fiscal Committee is meeting on Friday to discuss additional Medicaid funding and how it will be distributed. And I don't know if that affects our district or not. If it's like our pocket of Medicaid for our children, or if it's a different pocket of Medicaid for something else. Do you have any idea? You know anything about it? It probably doesn't have anything to do with us. I will, I just got an email today about it, so when I get home, I'll forward it to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Do you have anything else, Jane?
Nope, that was
Okay.
it.
Well, thank you very much for the budget update. And people wanting to learn more about the budget, remember at our next meeting on January 11th, we will be giving a budget overview. We are now on to FYIs for we have the December 1st enrollment report in our packet. Mary Ann, do you want to speak to that?
I'm good unless anyone has any questions. Anybody have any
If
questions?
not, we will move on to committees. Who has the manifest tonight? John?
I would move to approve the manifest and a total of $3,887,531.30. General payroll making up $2,542,259.92. And general expense making up, or made up by $1,345,271.38.
I'll second it.
So a first by John and a second by Lynn. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are now on to delegations and individuals. Do we have anyone who would like to speak?
Can we go back to, or can we circle back after Mr. Tripp to do other committees?
Oh, actually, Richard, can you hold on one moment? Sure, what?
Plenty of time.
Did you have something under other committees, Jane?
Under Building and Grounds Committee. I don't know if anybody from Building and Grounds wants to give an update, or I can certainly. I'd like to talk to one of the items that we had on the agenda yesterday for Building and Grounds was a request from Next Charter School, who is looking to do renovations within their space at Gilbert H. Hood, and they have 4 years left to their existing lease, and they would need to, they're requesting to extend their lease for another 10 years so that it's financially feasible for them to invest money into their space to be able to have their lease knowing that they've got an extension on it. So because that would have to go on a warrant article, we wanted to bring it forward to Building and Grounds and get their approval on that. And so if they would like to speak to it. And I also have some language from our district attorney as to what language would be on a warrant article so that voters could have the option to approve Next having an extension on their lease. And there would be no cost to the district for their renovations. I just want to make that clear. And they would continue with that lease, they would continue the rent that they pay the district with a similar fashion of an increase that they're paying at this moment. So in order to get the warrant article written for the public hearing, I just wanted to bring it to the board tonight to see if you would support having that as a warrant article.
Yeah, so, the committee discussed it yesterday, and it's a beneficial aspect to the students, an alternative from Pinkerton, and I think it's a benefit that lets the students stay in the district with a good alternative to high school, and it's a beneficial aspect to the community as well, and in a financial way as well. So as a committee, I visited Next, and I'm sure all of you have at one point or another in different levels and magnitudes, and it's certainly, I can speak to the benefit that it is in all those aspects. So as a committee, we decided it was a good venture to support, and we would encourage the board to do so as well, and pursue support from the community in the March elections.
Anyone else have any questions or comments about that?
The first question I would have is, are they asking to extend it 10 additional years? So it would be 14 years?
I'm sorry. They are asking, they're currently in year 6, and they're asking to extend it to year 2032. So they're asking for 10 years at the end of their current lease.
Okay. Yeah, and the reason I asked is obviously we are in the middle of a facilities assessment. And so if we are looking at a 10-year plan, my fear, I don't know how big of a fear it is that we don't know what this facilities report is going to come out and tell us as far as what we may be doing with our facilities, with them having 4 years left. Could we wait a year to do this? Is that a possibility? And wait to see what our facilities report spits out, and plan it that way as opposed to locking in even an additional 6 years without knowing what the state of our facilities will look like.
We can certainly bring that back to Joe Crawford. I know that for them, it's very time sensitive because they would like to, although it's not expanding the space, they're just doing renovations within their own space. I think they're looking to secure funding for that and make decisions on whether they would need to move forward or not. So, but I can certainly bring that back to him.
How would that year affect him? Could you explain how?
How waiting a year?
Yeah, how waiting a year
would affect him? Because they would start doing their renovations now. They would start securing their renovations, secure their funding for renovations. And I think that if, at least according to his email, I'm not sure if they don't think that they can extend their lease, that they're going to invest that type of money. They want to start their renovations soon. So I think putting it off a year, not sure that really benefits their program.
Just as a clarification, what they're doing is we had the meeting the other night of the committee for the next charter school, and they're in the process of a much more micro version of what we're doing right now. And there were two options that were on the table as far as evaluating how to go forward and renovate. And the option that they chose, I think wisely, was to pretty much go through a process where we become next becomes basically their own general contractor, and goes through the process and deals with a firm that evaluates and does the different processes that they think they're going to need. So it's not just the actual work, it's the planning to determine what kind of work that they have. So, you're right, it's time sensitive. It's something that it's not going to happen overnight. So the process should be beginning in a relatively short time, so they can figure out where they're going to go with that. So.
Right, and because it has to go on a warrant article, that's why the timing is sensitive now to be able to put a warrant article out for public hearing.
Do we have to ratify this on January 11th?
Do you have to ratify it?
Do we have to vote on January 11th for it to hit the ballot or not?
On January 11th, you would vote to move forward any warrant article that's presented.
This one included?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And Jane, we're meeting with Joe on Thursday, I think. We have a meeting with him on Thursday.
I mean, I'm satisfied with the answers. I can understand the time sensitivity and the need for it. Again, I think it's a very small fear of doing 10 years or maybe 11 years, I guess, total from now. So yeah, I mean, again, I guess I'd want to see the warrant article, but I trust the building and grounds committee, and satisfied with the answers I got tonight.
Does anyone else have any committee reports or any questions related to the ones presented thus far? If not, we will move on once again to delegations and individuals. Richard?
Good evening. Richard Tripp, 44 Wyndham Road. To start out, I want to say this is an excellent meeting tonight. I learned a lot. You'd almost think I was in school. I'm smiling. I also want to appreciate you putting a lot of the information that was presented tonight in the attachments. You know, I don't think I would have got quite as much out of the Davis demographics presentation if I hadn't had a copy of their presentation to look at. Same thing with the curriculum. I thought the curriculum was quite interesting. Thank you, Austin. Having said that, one of the things that I noticed is if you look at the school board meeting schedule, back in September through November, you used to have the minutes on the attachments list. And we haven't had minutes posted for a couple of meetings. Is this something that now we have to come to the SAU building to get? I was told that I shouldn't say SAW, I should say SAU. Anyhow, if the minutes are going to be posted online, that would be terrific, because I always like to see what the record is as opposed to what is on TV. The survey results, was that the survey results for the facility master plan?
No, Richard, those were the survey results for ESSER, for the ESSER survey that the district sent out, not for the master plan.
Because I'm wondering when the survey results for the facility master plan are going to be provided. Is that something that LaValle Brensinger
yes,
is
they're
going to do?
working on that now. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. The Voice of Democracy, not the Patriots Pen presentation tonight. That was nice. I think Ike said that he got like 12. Well, I am the scholastic chairman for the VFW in the South Central. And we had 121 entries from Hollis. So it's interesting that you guys managed to get 12, but 121, that was a burden because we had to do all that judging. Jane, do you know when the annual report's going to be available? Is that something that's going to be posted or presented or given out at the deliberative session?
It will be given out at the deliberative session. I know that the timeline between the public hearing and when the deliberative session is really tight. Kathleen does her best to get that out. I know you like it a little bit early from the deliberative, but it's tight getting it out to production and getting it for that day. So we'll get it to you as soon as it's done.
All
Richard,
right.
can I go back on a question? You gave a number of 121. Did that include high school?
No, that was just Patriots Pen.
Just
That's
Patriots
grade
Pen and
6 through
Hollis.
8.
Okay, thank you.
But we have a member over there that is a teacher, so he is very good about promoting it, you know. So, like I said, that's a lot of reading for us, you know. So if you only get 100, that's okay. So the summary that presentation that you put out tonight, is that going to be on the budget page?
It will have a new presentation. We'll post it, yes. We'll post it this week on the budget page. And I can also give you a copy of the handout that I did tonight. And all of that very same information will be at the public hearing as well.
Okay, super. Well, like I said, it was an excellent meeting tonight. I learned a lot. And let me cover my nose up so I don't contaminate you. have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Erica?
You too.
Erica? Can I just tell him where the minutes are? Because I just looked at the website. Richard? The minutes are posted on the website. The only one that's not on there is November 30th, and it's probably because they just got approved tonight. But they're right after the date. If you look under under meetings and you look under the date, the minutes are posted right there next to them.
Well, I printed this out.
It's a link, so it may not print when you print it, but if you look on the website under school board meetings, and then you scroll down, they're listed right with the date of the meeting.
Yeah, I see that. But like I said, November
30th was our last meeting, we just approved the minutes. That may be why they're not there yet.
So.
We don't post the minutes until they're approved. And we approved November 30th tonight.
Oh. Well, sorry, I'm a little slow. Thank you. Oh. I can wait a couple weeks. I've got taxes to do. Right, thank you. Yeah. But like I said, once again, thank you. Very informative night.
Thank you. Jane, under other business, it looks like the Derry Public Water System, Manchester Waterworks chlorine conversion is listed.
Sorry. That's just a town-wide notification, not just for the Derry School District. So since we received it, I would imagine that many other residents in the town have received the same notification, but we put it in as a public announcement because it will affect even the Derry School Districts. So we just put that in as an FYI.
With that, if there is no other business, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I was about to just say I wanted to thank everyone for their work this year and wish everyone a happy holidays, but with no ado, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?